Look at these dates, 2015 and 2026. That's an 11-year gap. In that time, an entire console generation has come and gone. We've survived a pandemic, technology has taken a massive leap, and today AI is generating video and audio on the fly. Meanwhile, the budgets for AAA projects can easily rival the annual GDP of small island nations. But some things never change. Xbox is still in deep crisis, and the Elder Scrolls 6 is still nowhere to be found. But that doesn't matter right now, something else does. If you boot up a standard 2026 blockbuster today, something weird happens. A game that's over 10 years old doesn't just look and play amazingly well, it actively embarrasses modern AAA slot. Everyone reads the word impossible differently. To some it seems completely unthinkable that 11 years have passed since its release. It's absolute madness to realize that in 2026 we're still talking about The Witcher 3. And not just because modders have once again slapped on some realistic textures, but because we're looking at a massive, fully fledged new expansion 11 years later. No game of a AAA scale has received major DLC after so much time. At best, you'd expect a technical patch or another remaster for new hardware. Can you imagine Bethesda doing something like that for Skyrim? It feels like just yesterday we were helping an old lady find her frying pan and riding into the village of White Orchard for the very first time. Riding down the corpse-stench-ridden slopes of Valen to the equally rotten swamps where the fog is so thick and the feeling of being watched is so palpable that it doesn't let go until you reach the orphan's shelter in the bog, or sitting down to play Gwent for the very first time. For someone who follows the industry, the word impossible sounds different. It sounds terrifying. Impossible is the realization that in modern AAA game development, creating something like this today is practically impossible. Why does an 11-year-old game still remain an unsurmountable peak? Why are we still so irresistibly drawn to the rainy bogs of Valen, the snowy peaks of Artskellig, and the fairy-tale aesthetic of Toussaint? To understand the phenomenon of The Witcher 3, we have to remember what 2015 was like. It was a golden, bumper crop year for the industry. Developers weren't afraid to take risks, and CD Projekt Red, despite the success of the second game, was still an ambitious, hungry Polish studio. With their work, they proved that fantasy built on Slavic folklore could absolutely dethrone the European and American mainstream. The Wild Hunt became an anomaly not because of its map size or its quest count. Its main weapon was unfiltered honesty, the brutality of its world, its grey morality, and the deep craftsmanship poured into every single detail. Its second major trump card is its slow pacing. Replaying the game now, you catch yourself thinking about how unusual it is to listen to long, measured dialogues. Not because they are boring, but because modern gaming has conditioned us to expect non-stop action. The industry is so desperately terrified of losing players' attention that it leaves no room to just soak in the atmosphere. We've simply forgotten that the best RPGs truly shine when they give the player space to think. The real value of the in-game notes and dialogues is that they build a living, breathing world. This is the complete opposite of Emil Polyarulo's paper airplanes philosophy, a concept that slaughters narrative depth in favor of an endless, mindless theme park ride where the player's brain is forced to shut off. The Witcher 3 rests on outstanding story arcs. Narrative unfolds against the backdrop of the war, where personal tragedies of the characters are deeply intertwined with high politics, betrayal, and the art of war. The Bloody Baron arc is the pinnacle of this narrative. The Baron is a character who evokes disgust and deep compassion all at once. There are no easy answers here, only a thick, grey morality with a bitter aftertaste. Meanwhile, the Crones of Crookback Bog and Ladies of the Forest set a dark, mystical tone. They embody archaic terror and the ultimate confrontation between man and monstrosity. In 2015, writers created characters to elicit a genuine emotional response from the player, who weren't given a sterile, bland protagonist tailored to fit corporate guidelines. But an exhausted Geralt, desperately seeking peace, yet once again dragged into court intrigue, the plague of war, and the fight against the White Frost. And this sincerity permeates the entire game, from random chats with side quest NPCs to epic finales. The world of The Witcher doesn't try to chase forced trends, shove in fake representation, or parade cardboard strong leaders where they clearly don't belong. It relies on its literary foundation and mythology. That is where its poetic power lies. But what happened next? Why did this standard get left behind in 2015? Right around 2018, sterile politic correctness flooded the industry. Along with it came the degradation of writing. Dialogues became flat and plot decisions turned cowardly, designed purely to avoid offending anyone. Investors loved it. By 2021, budgets had ballooned to absurd numbers. And when hundreds of millions of dollars are on the line, studios can't afford to experiment. Game design was turned into a rigid algorithm. Maximum bright flashes, constant hand-holding, a pat on the back for every step, and an endless stream of colored loot, just so the player never feels lonely. Modern releases like Dragon Age: The Veilguard or Assassin's Creed Shadows are the clearest victims of this corporate management. This safety comes with a price. These games are mortally boring. When you sand down a character's rough edges, all the drama disappears. It's impossible to care about a protagonist who has no flaws. In the end, we are sold a beautiful wrapper containing nothing but echoing emptiness. And this is where psychology kicks in. In psychology, there is a concept called restorative nostalgia. It's not just a blind "things were better back in my day" yearning. It's a defense mechanism. When the surrounding reality becomes too noisy, fake, and chaotic, the brain seeks a safe harbor, a place with clear rules and honest emotions. For millions of players, The Witcher 3 has become that sanctuary. Returning to it in 2026 is an act of emotional self-defense. Psychologists call this the pursuit of cognitive comfort. When you boot up a modern blockbuster, you have to fight your way through the fake noise and live service elements designed purely for attention and monetization. In The Witcher, you enter a world that respects your intelligence. Its mechanics, alchemy, and quests demand attention and mental effort. This is nostalgia for a time when games were crafted as authorial statements, not assembly line products. And that is exactly why in 2026, any news about the franchise's future brings both massive hype and deep anxiety. This is the core paradox. On one hand, you have the cold status of the original. On the other, you have a completely changed industry and a changed CD Projekt Red. Can anyone replicate this masterpiece today? Impossible. You can't step into the same river twice. The era of 2015 is gone. But does that mean it's not worth going back? The value of The Witcher 3 today is that it serves as a reminder. It reminds us why we fell in love with video games as an art form in the first place. For their ability to tell stories that leaves a mark on our souls, for genuine surprise, and for the freedom to entertain ourselves. Every time the industry vomits out another sterile product, we open our library and hit play on our beloved game from the past. We don't go back because we have nothing else to play. We go back to feel like games have meaning again. And as long as we have that option, the word impossible stops being a death sentence. It simply becomes a reminder of how high art can reach when a living human soul is poured into it.